Do you remember high school? The cliques, the drama, the desperate need to fit in? Most of us look back and think we escaped relatively unscathed. But what if I told you some schools leave marks on you that never fade? That some lessons aren't meant to be survived? I was 17 when I transferred to Blackridge Academy for my senior year. My dad's job had relocated us mid-school year, and Blackridge was the only private school in our new town with openings. An old, prestigious institution perched on a forested hill overlooking the sleepy community of Millfield. First impressions: Gothic architecture, ivy-covered walls, students in crisp uniforms who'd known each other since kindergarten. Being the new kid in your final year of high school is tough anywhere, but at Blackridge it felt like stepping into a foreign country without knowing the language. The building itself was a maze of corridors and staircases, some leading to dead ends or locked doors. Parts of the original structure dated back to the 1800s, with newer wings added over decades, creating a patchwork of architectural styles that never quite meshed together. On my first day, Principal Harmon assigned a student guide, a girl named Eliza, with perfect posture and a practiced smile that never reached her eyes. Blackridge has a rich tradition of academic excellence, she recited as we walked the shadowy hallways. We expect all students to contribute to that legacy. I nodded, half listening, more concerned with memorizing the route to my classes. But then she said something that caught my attention. Your senior project will be the most important work you do here. It determines everything. Senior project? I asked. Eliza glanced around before leaning closer. Every senior must complete an individual research project by graduation. It's intense. People who fail don't graduate. That doesn't sound so bad. I shrugged. I'm good at research. Her smile tightened. It's not just about the research. It's about what you discover. Before I could ask what she meant, we arrived at my first class. Advanced Chemistry with Dr. Winters, a rail-thin man with wire-rimmed glasses and perpetually stained fingers. The classroom was different from what I expected. No standard lab tables or modern equipment. Instead, the room felt more like an alchemist's workshop, with ancient wooden desks arranged in a semicircle facing an ornate teacher's station, equipped with glassware that belonged in a museum. Dr. Winters barely acknowledged my introduction, gesturing vaguely toward an empty seat next to a boy who looked as uncomfortable as I felt. "Hey," he whispered as I sat down. "I'm Marcus, transferred last semester." Finally, someone who understood what it was like to be an outsider. "Carrie," I whispered back. "Just started today." Silence. Dr. Winters snapped, without looking up from the complex formula he was writing on the board. "Today, we begin preparations for your senior projects." The room's atmosphere shifted instantly. Students sat straighter, tension crackling like static electricity. "As you know," Dr. Winters continued, "each of you will explore a unique area of research. Your topics were determined by your aptitude tests." Marcus leaned over slightly. "They don't let us choose our own topics," he explained under his breath. "Some tradition about the school, knowing what you need to learn." Dr. Winters walked between the rows, distributing sealed envelopes. When he reached me, he hesitated. "Ms. Sullivan, our newest addition." His eyes narrowed slightly. "Your tests were interesting. The committee had quite the debate about your assignment." He handed me an envelope that felt unusually heavy, the paper thick and cream-colored, sealed with actual wax bearing the school crest. "Do not open these until you are alone," Dr. Winters instructed the class. "Your project is a personal journey. Sharing details prematurely has consequences." I waited until lunch to open my envelope, finding a secluded spot in the library, a vast, three-story room with stacks that seemed to stretch endlessly. The seal broke with a satisfying crack, revealing a single sheet of parchment-like paper with just 3 lines of elegant script. Project 137, the Blackridge Memorial Wall Faculty Advisor. Dr. Elizabeth Hammond. Location, East Wing, 3rd floor, room 314. Nothing else. No description. No requirements. No rubric. Just a title, an advisor I hadn't met, and a location I didn't know. I spent the rest of lunch exploring the school map, trying to locate room 314. The East Wing wasn't on the main map distributed to students. When I asked a passing teacher, her expression clouded. "The East Wing is restricted," she said curtly. "You'll need special permission to access those areas." "But it's for my senior project," I explained, showing her the assignment. She glanced at the paper, and her demeanor changed completely. "I see. Dr. Hammond's project." She cleared her throat. "The East Wing entrance is behind the library's rare book section. You'll need your student ID to enter." As the day progressed, I tried asking other seniors about their projects. Most avoided eye contact, changing the subject immediately. By final period, history with Mr. Beck, I was frustrated and increasingly uneasy. After class, I approached Marcus, the only person who'd been remotely friendly. "Hey, what project did you get assigned?" I asked. He glanced around nervously. "We're not supposed to talk about it, remember?" "That seems weird, don't you think? All this secrecy." Marcus sighed, leading me to a quiet corner of the hallway. "Look, I don't know what they told you, but these projects aren't normal research assignments. Mine is about the original founding families of Millfield and their rituals." He shuddered slightly. "The things I've found in those archives, records of sacrifices, binding contracts signed in blood, it's disturbing stuff." "That can't be real," I argued. "It's probably just some immersive history exercise." "Then why did my faculty advisor show me a knife that was supposedly used in those rituals? Why does he insist I handle it while taking notes?" Marcus rubbed his palms on his uniform pants. "And why do my hands bleed sometimes after sessions, even though I don't remember cutting myself?" I might have dismissed his claims as dramatic exaggeration, if not for the genuine fear in his eyes, and the small bandage I noticed wrapped around his index finger. "What's your project?" he asked. "Something called the Blackridge Memorial Wall." His face paled. "Room 314, with Hammond." I nodded. That's the one they give to transfer students who arrive mid-year. The last guy who had that project. What happened to him?" Marcus wouldn't meet my eyes. "He's still here, in a way." Before I could press further, the final bell rang, and Marcus hurried away, calling over his shoulder, "Be careful what you write in your project notes. They read everything." The next morning, I reported to room 314 during my free period. The East Wing was noticeably older than the rest of the school. Narrower hallways, worn stone floors, and a persistent chill despite the building's heating system. Room 314 was locked. A small plaque beside the door read Memorial Archives, authorized personnel only. I swiped my student ID as instructed, and the lock clicked open. The room beyond was long and narrow, with a single window at the far end casting weak light over rows of glass display cases. The walls were lined with what appeared to be small brass plaques, hundreds of them, stretching from floor to ceiling. "Miss Sullivan, right on time." I jumped at the voice. A woman emerged from between the display cases. Dr. Hammond, presumably. She was younger than I expected, perhaps in her early 30s, with sharp features and unnaturally bright eyes. "Welcome to the Memorial Archives," she said. "Your project will be to catalog and research the stories behind our memorial wall." She gestured to the plaques covering the walls. Each, I now saw, bore a name, dates, and a small inscription. "Are these memorials for deceased students?" I asked, a chill running down my spine. Dr. Hammond smiled thinly. "Blackridge has a long history. Nearly 2 centuries of bright young minds have passed through these halls. Not all completed their journey." I approached the nearest plaque. Thomas Ellery, 1923-1940. His sacrifice advanced understanding. "What does that mean, his sacrifice?" "That's part of your research, Ms. Sullivan. Each plaque represents a student who contributed significantly to Blackridge's legacy, though not all contributions were voluntary." She handed me a leather-bound journal. "Record your findings here. You'll work in this room daily. The cases contain personal effects and records related to the memorial wall. Your final paper will analyze patterns in these deaths and their connection to the school's academic advancements." "Deaths," I echoed. "All these plaques represent dead students." "Not just dead, Ms. Sullivan. Transformed. Knowledge has a price." Her smile widened, revealing teeth that seemed too sharp. "You'll understand soon enough." After Dr. Hammond left, locking the door behind her with instructions to notify her when I wished to leave, I began examining the plaques more closely. They dated back to the school's founding in 1842, with a consistent pattern. Every year, between 1 and 5 students contributed to the school's legacy. The display cases contained personal items, journals, photographs, jewelry, even locks of hair. One case held what appeared to be teeth, arranged in a precise pattern. Another contained vials of dried substances I didn't want to identify. I selected a plaque from relatively recently, Rebecca Chen, 1999-2016, and searched for her items. In a small drawer labeled with her name, I found a USB drive and a handwritten journal. The journal detailed her senior project about consciousness transference rituals in educational settings. The final entry read, "I understand now what the senior project truly is. We're not just studying Blackridge's history, we're becoming it. Dr. Hammond says my research has unlocked the next phase. Tomorrow I'll join the memorial wall, not as a failure but as a success. My consciousness will help power the school's collective for decades to come. I'm scared, but honored. Knowledge doesn't die with the vessel." My hands trembled as I closed the journal. This couldn't be real. It had to be an elaborate prank played on new students, or some twisted psychological experiment. I tried the door, locked, as expected. My phone showed no service in this part of the building. With no immediate way out, I decided to gather more information. If this was some kind of test, I'd prove I could handle it without panicking. Over the next 2 hours, I reviewed more cases. A pattern emerged. Students who excelled in their research often volunteered for memorial status. Those whose entries showed resistance or attempts to expose the school ended up on the wall anyway. But their plaques bore different inscriptions: refused enlightenment or rejected transformation. As I worked, I noticed something odd about the room. The temperature seemed to fluctuate, growing colder whenever I approached certain plaques. And sometimes, when the building fell quiet, I could swear I heard whispers coming from the walls. Dozens of overlapping voices just below the threshold of comprehension. When Dr. Hammond returned to dismiss me, she examined my notes with approval. "You're making excellent progress, Ms. Sullivan, much faster than our last transfer student." "What happened to him?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She pointed to a fresh-looking plaque near the door. Jason Miller, 2004-2022. His questions expanded the collective. My blood ran cold. That plaque hadn't been there when I entered. I was certain of it. Tomorrow, Dr. Hammond said, as she unlocked the door, you'll begin the practical portion of your research. That night, I couldn't sleep. I searched online for information about Blackridge Academy's history, finding only glowing accounts of academic excellence and distinguished alumni. Nothing about unusual deaths or missing students. I did find one forum thread titled Blackridge Academy Truth, where anonymous users shared experiences similar to mine. Strange research assignments, restricted areas, faculty members with unsettling behaviors. Most concerning was a post from user named J. Miller, dated just 3 months ago. If you're reading this, and you've been assigned the Memorial Wall project, get out now. They're using senior projects to identify students who can perceive the collective. Once you start seeing the patterns, they mark you for recruitment. I've seen too much. Going to confront Hammond tomorrow with evidence. There were no further posts from that user. The next day, I arrived at school early, seeking out Marcus. I found him in the library, looking exhausted, dark circles under his eyes. I need to talk to you about the projects, I whispered urgently. He shook his head. Not here. They're always listening. Who's listening? The collective? The school itself? His voice dropped even lower. Did you know there are exactly 1,842 plaques on that wall? Same as the year the school was founded? But the school records show over 2,000 student deaths since opening. The missing ones are the students who refused to be memorialized. Their energy was used differently. Energy? What are you talking about? The school feeds on potential, intellectual, creative, spiritual. The faculty aren't just teachers, they're harvesters. He rolled up his sleeve, revealing small circular scars on his forearm. My advisor takes samples during every session. Says it's to measure my connection to the material. Before I could respond, a shadow fell across our table. Principal Harmon stood there, his tall frame blocking the library exit. Mr. Reyes, Ms. Sullivan, fascinating discussion, but I believe you both have project sessions scheduled now. It wasn't a suggestion. Room 314 felt different that day. The air was thicker, charged with static electricity that made the hair on my arms stand on end. Dr. Hammond was already inside, standing before a section of the wall that had been cleared of plaques, revealing a smooth black surface that seemed to absorb light. Today you'll experience what makes our curriculum truly special, she announced, gesturing to the black wall. This is the interface to Blackridge's collective, the accumulated knowledge and consciousness of generations of exceptional students. You mean the dead students? I asked, unable to keep the tremor from my voice. Death is such a limited concept, Ms. Sullivan. Our students transcend physical existence. Their knowledge, their very essence, becomes part of Blackridge itself. The building, the grounds, the very air you breathe is infused with their contributions. She pressed her palm against the black surface, which rippled like liquid under her touch. Today, you'll make your first connection to the collective. All senior projects lead here eventually, a test of compatibility. I took an involuntary step backward. And if I refuse? Refusal indicates fear, not rejection, she said smoothly. Fear can be overcome, but I don't think you'll refuse. You've already shown remarkable insight in your research. The collective has noticed you. As if in response to her words, the whispers from the walls grew louder, more insistent. I could almost understand them now, eager voices calling my name, promising knowledge beyond imagination. What happens if I'm compatible? I managed to ask. Then you'll have a choice. Complete your education conventionally, or accelerate your contribution and join the collective immediately. Those who choose acceleration receive prime placement on the memorial wall. In my actual research, the patterns I've been studying. Dr. Hammond's smile widened. That's how we identify candidates. Your observations about energy signatures in the memorial records were particularly impressive. Few students make that connection without guidance. She gestured to the black wall again. Just one touch. That's all it takes to experience what awaits you. My heart raced. Every instinct screamed to run, but where would I go? The door was locked, the building itself seemingly alive with watching eyes and listening ears. But then I remembered something, a detail from Rebecca Chen's journal. She'd written about a rejection phrase that temporarily disrupted the collective's influence, a phrase passed secretly among students who wanted to maintain their autonomy. Before I touch it, I said carefully, I have one question. Is it true that knowledge belongs to the seeker, not the vessel? Dr. Hammond's expression flickered, something like pain crossing her features. The whispers from the wall abruptly ceased. Where did you hear that? She demanded, her voice suddenly hoarse. I didn't answer, watching as she pressed her hands to her temples, grimacing. The black wall behind her rippled violently, patterns of light moving beneath its surface, like agitated creatures. That sequence is forbidden, she hissed. It disrupts the harmony. Taking advantage of her distraction, I lunged for the door, yanking at the handle. To my surprise, it opened, the electronic lock apparently affected by whatever was happening to the wall. I burst into the hallway, nearly colliding with Marcus, who appeared equally startled. Run, I gasped. Now. We fled down the corridor as the lights flickered throughout the east wing, behind us. I heard Dr. Hammond's voice, distorted, overlapping with dozens of others, as if multiple people were speaking through her at once. The seeker cannot escape the vessel. The school's emergency alarm began blaring as we reached the main building. Students and faculty poured into hallways, creating chaos we used as cover to reach the front entrance. As we crossed the threshold onto the front steps, I felt a pressure lift, like breaking the surface after being underwater too long. We didn't stop running until we reached the bottom of the hill, the imposing silhouette of Blackridge Academy looming behind us. What did you do? Marcus panted. Used a disruption phrase I found in one of the journals. Temporarily breaks their connection to the collective. That won't hold them long. The school will cover this up, make us look like troubled students who had a psychotic episode. He was right. We had no evidence, no way to expose what was happening without sounding delusional. We need to leave town, I said, tonight. That was 3 years ago. Marcus and I both managed to get our GEDs in different states, using different names. We've been careful, moving frequently, avoiding digital footprints that might lead back to us. But Blackridge's influence stretches far beyond that hilltop. Twice we've encountered former faculty members in distant cities, their eyes lighting with recognition before we could escape. Last month, Marcus received a letter containing only a brass plaque with his name and the inscription awaiting return. The strangest part, sometimes I still hear the whispers, especially in older buildings with similar architecture to Blackridge, voices calling from behind walls, promising that my place in the collective remains reserved. And sometimes, in dreams, I see the memorial wall, now with empty spaces, where 2 new plaques will eventually hang. Our plaques. Because the truth about Blackridge Academy isn't just that it consumes its students. It's that once it selects you, it never stops hunting. So if you're a high school student who receives an unexpected transfer opportunity to a prestigious private academy, pay attention to the details they don't mention in the brochure. Ask about their graduation rate. Ask about their memorial traditions. And if they assign you a research project that no one else is allowed to discuss, run before you become just another name on the wall, another whisper in the collective, another lesson that was never meant to be survived.